Helen Connor sat in the big room at Johnson and Kemp Lawyers, staring at a yellow pad on the table. It was empty, and she felt stuck. She had to get ready for the most important talk of her life, trying to find reasons why Michael shouldn't leave her. But she just sat there, her mind drifting, unable to find the right words. For a week, she tried hard but couldn't sort her thoughts. Whenever she tried to focus, tears made it impossible to write. She kept thinking about their 25 years together, but it was that day 7 months ago, on Michael's birthday, that wrecked her. That day, everything fell apart. She played with the heavy ring on a gold chain around her neck. The memory of finding it made her cry. She found it 3 weeks after Michael vanished while looking for papers in the safe in the garage. There was Michael's wedding ring. She was shocked. Why is Michael's ring here? Then it hit her. He had been home after finding out she was unfaithful, but she thought he was in D.C. He must have been in the house, and she didn't notice. The thought of Michael seeing her with Brian was too much, even worse than him seeing pictures or a DVD. Why did I do it? When and why didn't she see? Did he pack? Did he take anything? Finding the ring hurt her more than anything else. It meant Michael couldn't forgive her, and their marriage was done. A few hours later, Megan found her mom lying on the garage floor, crying, the ring in her hand. Helen wore a gold chain given by Michael like a charm to keep him close. Dr. Claudia Chambers, her tough love shrink, thought it also made Helen think of her own wrongs and of Michael more. Dr. Chambers, in her 40s with dark hair, didn't sugarcoat things. She was all for hard truths. Helen didn't need a reminder of her mistake or how much she missed Michael. For 7 months, she felt lost without him. He was her one true love. From the first moment, she ached for him every day, scared she might never hold or be with him again. Despite Helen's flaws, self-centered, selfish, yes, narcissistic, things Dr. Chambers pointed out, Michael was always the loving one. He had looked after her and their daughters, Megan and Liz, better than she ever did over 25 years. The girls grew up strong and independent, learning from Michael, not Helen. He was always there for school events and bedtime stories, while Helen was caught up in her career. She once laughed off not having the mommy gene with a friend. Yet, Megan and Liz stuck by her, trying to help. They knew love and forgiveness from their dad. But can Michael forgive me? Helen wondered. I don't know, said Helen. Can you forgive yourself? Dr. Chambers asked. Helen thought for a while. No, Claudia. Why? I was dumb and made a big mistake that lost me my true love and all we had. And I love him so much, Helen said with tears. Helen, why don't you talk about how Michael must have felt? Why do you think he left without a word? Helen looked out the window at the leafless trees in the foggy gloom. She wondered how she got to this sad point in her life, where she might go on alone. The thought of being alone scared her. Her mom died when she was 13, and her dad passed soon after. She and Michael got married. Michael made her feel safe from being left alone. He was always there for her to help and put up with her bad moods. When she heard he was shot during a bank robbery in L.A. and might not make it, she was scared out of her mind. She couldn't think of a life without Michael. It was hard for her to see him in the hospital, looking like he might die, with bandages and tubes everywhere. She couldn't bear it. When they called to say he was awake, she cried on her bed, filled with relief and all the feelings she held in. It took her hours to get ready. She wanted to look her best and not let Michael see her worried or scared when she went to see him. Now she had to face that scary future again. This time it felt like Helen had handed the gun to Michael herself. Her mind doctor really shook her up by asking, "Why is it always about you, Helen? What's your fear of being left alone as you get older? You're worried that Michael might not forgive you and that he might want to fix things? I don't get it. I think you don't, Helen. Aren't you listening? What about Michael? You never think about his feelings. Sadly, he didn't stick around long enough to face you and share his thoughts. How do you know if he cared? Those questions hit her hard. With Dr. Chambers' help, she realized she had taken Michael's love for granted. She thought she could do anything risky because his love would always be there to catch her. Helen, who always needed proof, suddenly didn't need any proof of Michael cheating. Why did she believe Brian's lies, Helen? It seems like you were ready to cheat anyway, but telling yourself Michael was cheating made you feel less guilty. Dr. Chambers was right. Deep down, she wanted it. She was up for it, and Brian was the first man to notice she was open to someone else. She knew she shouldn't have gotten close to Brian. He was known at work for being a flirt, and she liked the attention. She thought a little flirting was okay since it made her feel good, and with Michael away so much, it seemed harmless. But Brian didn't stop chasing her. At the company's New Year's party, he found a moment to kiss her and even got a bit too handsy. His desire and his body against hers drove her wild. Brian wanted her. Brian didn't love her, he just wanted her for her body, her 45-year-old body. This made her so mad that she ended up with Michael at her place, and they had wild sex. She didn't look for Michael's softness or love, she just needed to get rid of the huge want she felt. Helen shed a tear remembering that night, the last time Michael was close to her. It's been about a year since she first went to that hotel with Brian. Right when they got to the room, Brian was all over her. He didn't wait or let her think twice, he just went for it. Deep down, she knew that's what she wanted too, just sex. No thinking. No love. No gentleness. She had dressed up for it in her sheer black bra, tiny silk panties, sheer stockings, and very high heels. Brian wasn't as big as Michael, but he was demanding, and that got her going. Over and over, she felt young and wanted. For a while, she liked the thrill of sneaking around because it added to the fun. Sometimes she wished Michael had been around more. Then she wanted him to see her looking all satisfied and maybe guess that another man was seeing her. But Michael was so busy with work, especially with the Shiro's deal. And for some reason, Helen couldn't bring herself to be with Michael while she was seeing Brian. She noticed Michael was upset, and she missed being close. But as things went on with Brian, she started to think maybe Michael was seeing someone else because he stopped trying with her. Dr. Chambers asked her, how many times can a man be turned away before he stops trying? After about 6 weeks with Brian, Helen started to doubt it all. The fun with Brian cooled down after the first few times, and she knew he wasn't a forever thing. So she thought it was time to fix things with Michael. They decided to try to make their marriage better by going on a 6-month cruise. So why did you keep going with Brian, Dr. Chambers? Helen had dug into that question a lot. Helen knew that stopping an affair was harder than starting one. Plus, Brian always wanted her chasing her for sex. She enjoyed the attention from this younger, good-looking man. He really liked how Helen dressed up in stockings, garters, and heels for him, something she didn't do for Michael anymore. Why'd she stop wearing them even though Michael liked it, she couldn't say. 3 months into therapy, Dr. Chambers got serious. Hello, we've been talking about signs for 3 months, all about signs, but you haven't told me the real reason you tried to wreck your marriage to Michael, who you say is the only man you ever loved. I want the true cause, honestly, Claudia. I can't find a big reason, I just made a huge, dumb mistake and it's costing me a lot, Helen replied. You say Michael is the best husband and dad, and he loves you a lot. Aside from him being away a lot these last 2 years, you can't think of why you acted this way, nothing? Have you had other affairs? No way, how can you ask that? Just checking, ruling out a reason, I swear, vanity and dumb choices, that's it. What about money? Money, Claudia? We have plenty. But was it always like that? No. How does money work between you two? Who handles it? Who spends most? Well, Michael jokes that I'm the CFO, and he's not wrong. I deal with the bills, look after the accounts, and watch our investments. For big stuff over $2,500, we talk about it first. So who earns the most? Michael does. For how long? His business really soared about 5 years back, and his earnings jumped high. Before that, we made about the same. In fact, for the first 5 years in San Francisco, I was the one bringing in most of the money while Michael was getting his business off the ground. He made a good amount, but I earned more than double what he did. So now he makes what, twice as much as you? 2 years back, it shot up to about 10 times more, and this year with the Big Chas deal, we don't even need to work anymore. How do you feel about that? I'm glad for him, for us. Dr. Chambers flipped through her notes. A few weeks back, you said that 2 years ago, you started feeling less interested in sex and became, in your words, really tough on Michael. Could those feelings be linked? I don't see how. I want him to do well. Do you? Yes, of course, Helen, if only marriages came with a guide. It's about working together, not fighting each other. Helen paused, thinking deeply while sitting in the cozy chair in Dr. Chambers' office. She spoke softly. For years ago, when I didn't get the big promotion, I pushed myself even harder, feeling like a loser, while Michael kept winning. And 2 years ago, when the Chas deal started, Michael was buzzing with excitement. He said it was a huge chance for us and the firm. Honestly, I felt bitter. I was jealous of his wins, his knack for making things work. I told myself I was the smarter one, the one who worked harder, and a way better lawyer. And just like that, Michael got all the luck. Got it, you saw him work hard all these years, even got mad when he wasn't home, and you still think you worked harder, Helen? I'm going PL here, but that's nuts. Helen stopped, looking at the ground. How could I be so mean to him? I'm so dumb, Dr. Chambers just nodded. Now tell me about Terry and Cassie and why they scare you. With Claudia's help, Helen started to fight her bad thoughts, but she couldn't take back what she did to Michael. She watched the clock, just 15 more minutes. Would Michael come early? She stopped trying to write and thought about what to say. She thought about taking one of the strong sleep pills Dr. Chambers gave her, but she wanted a clear mind, plus she had to save them. Why did Dr. Chambers give her so few? She knew she had to be honest, tell Michael how much she loves him, and beg for another chance. Promise to be true, never to leave, keep her wedding promise, and be a good wife and mom. What if he said no? She pushed that thought away as she wiped her eyes. He had every right. If it were her, she might have asked for a divorce too. But she was ready to forgive what she thought was his affair so they could take a trip and start fresh. She wanted to forgive, but it was all a lie made up by her guilt and Brian's hints. The day Terry came with the divorce papers, she got mad, thinking another woman was the reason. How funny that was. Terry was right to be mad. She knew I was at fault for thinking she was the one in the wrong. I wish I hadn't seen Michael right before Christmas. It hit me hard. He looked good, really sure of himself. He was more fit than I remembered, like a new Michael I hadn't noticed before. My heart jumped and my legs felt weak when we met on the street. Hearing him talk about the goodbye party made my heart drop. I couldn't stand the thought of him leaving again. How could I show him I love him and get him back? I wanted to hug him tight, say sorry, and hear him say everything would be okay. But that moment went away when he said goodbye. Helen, my heart hurt because those were the same last words he had said months ago. I couldn't let those be our final words. I saw the sadness in his eyes as he said goodbye. Then I knew he had figured out something was wrong that day. I was on the phone in the hallway of the palace with Brian. His goodbye had felt off, and then he wouldn't talk to me on the phone. Deep down, I knew there was trouble. I didn't listen to that feeling and went to the room with Brian. Weeks later, my nightmare started, and we hadn't spoken since. Merry Christmas was all I could say. Why not I'm sorry or please forgive me? I'm a top lawyer, but then like now, I couldn't find the right words. I walked to the windows and looked out at the morning fog. I watched a minivan with its lights on pull into the parking lot. It pulled up right in front of the building, almost just below her window on the second floor. 2 folks were inside. Her heart dropped when she saw Michael and Terry. Oh no, why is she here? Tears fell again as she saw Terry lean over and hug her Michael. She shouldn't. They hugged for a long, long time. Terry's head on Michael's shoulder. Helen stepped back from the window. Her mind was so full of sadness and loss, she could barely stop crying. It was like the bad feelings from Michael's birthday came back all at once. She remembered that awful day and felt even worse. She grabbed her purse, found her pills, and quickly got some water, spilling it because she was so eager to feel the pills calm. Standing there, she felt like someone had punched her in the gut. That hug she saw told her everything was over. Without thinking much, she took another strong pill. She looked at the pill bottle. Maybe she should just take all of them now. Then she heard his steps on the stairs. When Michael met Terry, you walked up to Terry's mommy van just as she stepped out. She was dressed warmly in a blue soft sweater and long skirt with tall boots, holding 2 Starbucks cups. She gave me a smile as I walked down the big stone steps. My heart leaped. God, she's stunning, and I'm so lucky she loves me. I could have driven or had McGregor Global's driver take me to see Helen, but I felt I needed to be with Terry this morning. She didn't really want to hear. You go, Michael. 1 big non-fat chai, extra hot. Thought you might need this since you probably skipped breakfast. I took the cup from her and set it on top of the van. Then, I pulled her close and kissed her. Startled, she almost let her cup fall, but quickly kissed me back. Why did you do that? She asked, out of breath. Because you're the most lovely lady in San Francisco, and you make me very happy, I replied. She turned a bit red at my words, and the worry I saw in her when she stepped out of the van faded away. She seemed to relax as if she had just figured out a big puzzle. During the 45-minute drive to Palo Alto, we talked about her job and how Cassie was getting back into school after the Christmas break. But there was something I needed to ask her. Terry, I've been thinking about the past few years, and I don't think Helen's affair was a shock to you, I said. She looked at me, her smile gone. Then, she looked at the road and thought for a bit. Michael, I'm a woman and really good at finding things out. I look for how people behave, and when they act out of the ordinary, I probably knew something was really wrong with your marriage way before you did. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I tried to hint at it a few times when we had lunch at Boulevard. I'd usually bring up Helen, you'd talk about how good she was doing or about her big cases. But then you'd stop talking about her. You'd talk about Megan and Liz, but nothing about Helen, except she's fine or something short like that. Michael, that's a warning sign. I thought it was because you were so busy with the Chas deal. I guess that you being away a lot was hard on your marriage. Also, sometimes when we met each week to talk about my work on Karos and his family and their business, I noticed you'd look lost. I ended up thinking it was something to do with you and Helen. There were times during lunch when I thought you'd share your heart with me, but it never happened. Even with old friends, it's tough to share deep stuff. So when I popped into your office months ago to ask about Helen, you weren't shocked? I inquired. No, Michael, I was honestly shocked. I thought Helen was too wise for such acts. But looking back, I might have seen it coming. How? From the society pages. What, Michael, we both know Helen loves the spotlight. She always pulled you to those charity dances and events, and often your photos ended up in the newspapers. You never saw it? I get it, Michael. You don't like rumors and never read those society pages. Wouldn't shock me if Helen kept a book filled with those paper cuts. So what does this mean for us? I asked. When I was looking into things, I started to think about those society pages. I read them since many of those folks are or will be my clients. Something about you and Helen struck me as odd. So I had my record keeper look up the past couple of years in the Chronicle and the Examiner, and you vanished from the pictures. What? While you were tied up with the Shiro deal, Helen kept going to those events alone. Did you know? I shook my head. No, Michael, I didn't think so. Helen loves the spotlight, and she kept it up even when you were gone. Man, what's with her? There's more, okay, spill it. A few months back, Brian Taylor began popping up in those photos. That snake, first he was just there in the back, then it got more obvious. You know, the photo caption, Helen Connors and Brian Taylor from the firm of Williamson and Jenkins helped the Junior League raise money at the opera's big night. She was there for Williamson and Jenkins, a big money backer. No bad talk was out there, but those pictures made them look too close. Can she really be this silly? What was she trying to show off? Did she hope I'd find out? Terry paused, then continued, maybe. What could be it started as just a bit of fun, then as things got deep, it was about getting your eye. She thought you'd see those snaps with Brian or hear about them, and then you'd get green-eyed and show her more love, Michael. Helen feels unsure a lot, and you're her rock, her big cheer. You love her fully, then you're out of her world for years, Terry, that's rough. I get it, but you know Helen better than most and might see the reason. So this whole mess was to get my look? That's nuts. I guessed at first, but after it got real, maybe she aimed to make you feel bad for leaving her. Could be I'll just talk to her. The ride went on quietly. I had to mull over a lot. I wished I hadn't brought it up with Terry. Talking about it made the hurt and anger fresh again. Michael, we're here. I saw her slight smile and her eyes shine. Her blue sweater made her eyes pop and showed her shape well. She came close and hugged me. I breathed in the clean scent from her hair and the soft smell of her perfume. I love the zingy taste from that first time on Christmas Eve and every time since. Terry, I love you, saying it hit me deep. She clung tighter, her face in my neck. I felt a warm tear there. I love you, Michael, always will, she barely said. I stepped out of the van and walked into Johnson and Kemp's place. I felt the photo in my jacket pocket to make sure it was still there. First thing I saw, Hella looked bad. She stood by the windows and turned to me, dressed sharp as ever in a skirt, boots, and a dark green silk top, but her eyes were deep set and her face thin. She had been crying. There was a tissue box on the shiny table, a blank pad, and the fancy silver pen I once gave her. How are you, Helene? She gave me a look, trying to read my mood. Some days are okay. How about you, Michael? To be honest, Helene, it's like I'm in a weird dream. Everything's all mixed up and flipped around. Helene cracked a small smile at that. I pulled out one of the big brown leather chairs close to where she was. She probably thought I'd sit far from her, but we had been together for 25 years. It felt right to be close as we let go of our marriage. Come sit, Helene, I said, nodding to the chair by me. She shook her head, her short auburn hair moving. I work better on my feet, she said with a sad grin, as if sharing a private joke. She looked so pretty and so hurt. I wanted to hug her, make it better, but those times were gone. It hurt knowing I wouldn't hold her again. We had been through so much. I wondered, why did she let everything we had go? Helene moved closer and stopped a bit away, just looking at me. The sadness in her eyes was hard to see. Michael, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what I did to you, to us. I loved you the first time I saw you. Her voice cracked as she tried to stop the cry. I'll always love you. I hope we get old together. She let her tears fall. I'm talking to a doctor now. She helped me see my own bad stuff, my need to be first, my envy of your wins, and oh, my dumb ex, she cried out. I hurt you a lot because of it. I get it now that us getting back together is just not going to happen. But I need to ask if you can forgive me. I watched her, wishing I could make her pain go away, but I felt too empty inside. Helene, come sit down. I stood up and moved her chair out. She fell into it, hiding her face, crying harder. I had never seen her like this, not in 25 years. I gave her tissues and then brought her some water. She was really thankful for these small things. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't want you to see me like this. I wanted to be the strong Helen for you. I'm so sorry. Despite my pain and anger, her sadness moved me. I had loved her my whole grown life. My task was to keep her safe and help her. It hurt me to see her in pain. She looked up, a bit calmer. Dr. Chambers, my doctor, said I needed to hear how you felt when you found out I wasn't true. She started crying again. You might not want to hear that, Helen. It's key, Michael, key for us both. She took another tissue. I paused, my mind spinning. Where do I start, Helen? Let me talk about my worst day, about 7 months back, at the hotel. I saw Brian Taylor touch you. Your eyes grew wide with shock and fear. That day was big for me. I had just finished a huge deal and was rushing home to tell you. I hoped it would start something new for us. We could finally take that trip you wanted, even though we weren't as close. Lately, I hoped we could find each other again. Hella just stared pale, her mouth opened and closed as if she wanted to say something, but I had to finish. I saw you outside the hotel. I was so happy I followed you. You remember, I called you, and while we were talking, Brian put his hand on your leg. He shouldn't have done that, and you shouldn't have let him. I got louder, and she pulled back. Sorry, Hella cried without trying to stop it. Why didn't I? Why didn't I stop it right then? I wanted to. I wanted to fight him, and maybe you too, but it felt like my heart broke and left me seeing my wife of 25 years with another man crushed me. She hid her face and cried harder, unable to look at me. I knew it wasn't the first time, Helen. If I had asked you then, would you have told the truth? I don't think so. You're good at arguing. You'd have said I got it wrong. I see you found my ring. She looked at it and touched it softly. I went home, packed a bit, and left the ring for you. I don't know when you found it, but I couldn't wear it after what I saw. I just couldn't, she winced. I need to show you something. I pulled out an old bent photo from my coat and put it on the table. I had to flatten it out to make it sit right. I need you to see this, Helen. She just stared at me, seeing how mad I was. Look, I said a bit softer. She finally looked down at the photo. Her eyes got big, and tears fell on the photo. Out of all the stuff Terry and her team found, this is all I kept. I got rid of everything else. All the pics of you with Brian, all the sounds of you cheating. She flinched. You got any idea what it does to a guy, seeing the only woman he's ever loved with another man, loving him back like she didn't care? Helene couldn't look at me. She kept staring at the photo, maybe thinking about when it was taken. Why this photo? It's just you in a fancy hotel robe, smiling a bit. It's that smile and the look on your face, like you just had a good time, that got to me. I thought that smile was just for me, but there it was, for someone else. I've had this photo since right before I left for Asia. At first, it kept the anger and hate going strong. Yep, anger and hate, can you believe it? Feeling that way about a woman I've loved for 25 years. I used to look at it every day, but I knew I couldn't keep those feelings. They were tearing me up. Working at Global saved me. It gave me something to focus on, took my mind off the pain and betrayal. I'm starting to heal, putting myself back together piece by piece. You have broken my heart, Helene, in a way only someone you truly love can, I said. Can I let it go? Will I? I looked away from the picture, tears still in my eyes. Yes, I can, and I will, not for you, Helene, but for me. You were right when you said we can't go back to how things were, even though I love you, and we've spent 25 years together. What happened can't just disappear. A marriage needs trust, love, and respect. The love is there. I believe you when you say you love me. But the trust is gone, and the respect you had for me went away too. I made the Kairos deal happen without you, without my partner. Maybe I did it despite you because that was our worst time. Do you remember? I asked you to come to Europe with me. The first 2 times, you were too busy but didn't like it when I was gone. Then the last time, you said yes but started a fight over nothing, so I went alone. At my new job with Global, I'll be traveling a lot. I'd always worry, Helen, about what you were doing, who you were with. We don't have trust anymore. I picked up the photo and moved a big brown ashtray closer. I took out a silver lighter, a gift from McGregor, lit the corner of the photo, and let it burn in the ashtray. We watched it turn to ash. Hella's smile disappeared in the flames. She turned to face me, our knees almost touched. She was pale, past tears. Even though I love you, Helen, our marriage is like that photo, just ash. It can't be fixed, it's gone. She tried to speak, but I stopped her. Is this what your therapist wanted, Helene? Does it show you how I feel and what your unfaithfulness caused? She just nodded slightly. I won't make you look bad or push you away in front of others. We're bound to bump into each other around here. It's not a big city, and we hang out with the same folks. I won't make Megan and Liz pick who they like more, and I'll be right next to you at Megan's wedding in a few weeks. But that's it. Don't reach out if you feel alone. Don't try to get in touch for any reason. I can let go of what you did, but it'll always be in my mind, like that picture. I'll try my best to turn those bad memories to dust, Helen. You aren't the partner I needed. I need someone who loves me in a giving way, someone who wants to be my sidekick, not someone who tries to beat me. You've either forgotten, or maybe you never knew, that being married means both of us always being there for each other. We need to talk. I need someone who can take my love and cheer for me when I do well, just like I cheer for her, someone who doesn't use their looks to play games or hurt, and someone who stays true. She didn't say anything for what felt like forever. Like Terry, she finally whispered. I looked at her and saw her sadness. Yes, Helen, just like Terry. I stood up. Are you ready to sign the papers so we can move on? She looked at me, a single tear ran down her face. She nodded. I walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Helen. I closed the door softly. The meeting over, Helen Connors laid her head down on the table, her cheek against the smooth surface. The pills helped her relax. She hid her face with her arms, trying to shut out the anger and pain. How did it get to this point? How could she have messed up so badly? Slowly, she lifted her head and looked for her purse, then she took out the amber bottle and opened it. 6, 7, 8, 9, probably not enough. She decided to wait and save them. No matter how bad she felt now, she'd wait for her next refill to have enough. Maybe she'd grab 1 or 2 to make it through Megan's big day, but then she'd be set for sure. That should do it. The empty feeling and fear of getting old without the only man she ever really loved made her choice easy. Terry. 5 years later, near Belize, Central America, I stood by the door of the right side room on the Gabriel, leaning as I watched Michael tell a bedtime tale to our 2 sweet girls. Sarah, 3.5, with light hair like her sis, sat on his lap on the bed. Cassie, 13, leaned on his shoulder, her arm linked with his, snug by his side. The book about Ralph the dog was really for little kids, but Cassie didn't mind. She was just happy to be near them, more so since Michael became her true dad over the last 4 years. These past months on the Gabriel felt like a dream as we slowly moved along California and Mexico's coast, then through the Panama Canal. The weather was perfect, and each day felt like we were the only folks on Earth. The blue-green of the Pacific was just as folks say. As we headed south, we were just enjoying our time. No rush. Michael, still in charge of security at McGregor Global, would check in now and then, but his team back in San Francisco had things under control. Michael looked so at ease and joyful, the most I've ever seen. Not that he wasn't always happy with the girls and me, but being away from work and all the travel, he could really relax. It was all about the girls, but we still found moments for us. He was an amazing, loving dad and husband. Why did Helene ever cheat? Michael was the perfect partner and father. I shook off those bad memories. Mike was now full of joy, gone were the dark days when shock, pain, and betrayal from the only woman he loved filled his heart. I made myself think of the good times instead, the lovely 5 years we spent together when our daughter was born and the love we shared every single day. I looked at the 2-carat ring on my left hand and thought back to when he gave it to me. We had just come out from his talk with Helen. He came back to me, sitting in a big soft leather chair, trying and failing to read the paper for the last 30 minutes, my cold coffee still by my side. Mike took my hand, a small smile on his lips, and lifted me up and kissed me. Right then, all my worries about him and us melted away. We drove back to the city, not talking much, his hand warm and comfy on my leg as we drove by Huntington Park on Nob Hill. He asked me to stop the car. Mike wanted to walk a bit. The sun was starting to cut through the fog as we walked hand in hand. After a bit, he stopped and faced me, still holding my hand. "Terry, you know I love you." I just nodded, too filled with feelings to talk. "And I know you love me, have for a long time. These last few weeks made me think a lot about my future. I've told you how much I missed you when I was away, your smile, your warmth, and most of all, your love. And I know it might seem too soon, seeing that I'm just getting divorced from Helen, but I want us to be together all the time. I want this to last forever. I want you to be my wife." "What?" I was so shocked. That was all. Given the recent ups and downs I've experienced, particularly today, I could say that I was at a loss for words. Though I had hoped that one day he would want more from us, his statement left me speechless. I paused and turned to face him. "Will you marry me?" "I'm sorry to drop this on you so fast. I just had to ask before I lost you." "Michael, oh yes, you amazing man. I'll marry you. I love you. And that part about not letting me go? Well, you won't have to worry about that." I put my arms around his neck and gave him a strong kiss while he reached into his jacket. I was so in love with this kind man, he was everything to me. Finally, he handed me a small black velvet-covered box and said, "Hold still and let me kiss you, right? What are you looking for anyway?" It appeared to have a ring inside of it. As I opened it, my hands trembled and my heart skipped a beat. He pulled out a gleaming large diamond ring from the box and reached for my left hand, but I stopped myself. "Oh my God, Michael." He then told me about Gina. "Michael, before I take this ring, I need to know about the woman on your plane." His description of their meeting, her work as his nurse, and their subsequent romance filled me with so many emotions. I had hoped I would be the one to help him get better and move on, so I was hurt and saddened. It had taken me 15 years to find him. Why was it that Gina, a young, attractive woman, had to go before Helen? The thing that really got to me was how deeply Michael felt for Gina, even though I could tell they were together just by looking at them. It seems that my surprise was unwarranted. Relationships were something Michael took very seriously. We were sitting on a nice bench in the park when I started crying. His feelings for Gina were something I didn't want to hear, but I had to know. I noticed a brief flash of rage in his eyes before they softened once more. "Terry, I've chosen. It's you I want to be with forever, not Gina." "But, Michael, she's with Global. You'll see her again. And from what I saw and what you've said, she really cares for you." He smiled. I grinned as I met his eyes. "Terry, you think I can't keep away from a pretty young lady?" I could see where this was headed. "It seems like I haven't fallen for you in the last 9 years, he chuckled before becoming somewhat more somber. "I'm not as clueless about ladies as you might think. Right after you came to San Francisco, I saw you liked me. I liked the attention, and it made me look good to be seen with a pretty young blonde like you, but I was married to Helen. As long as my marriage was okay, it was better we stayed just friends, even more when my marriage started to have problems and we were so close at work. Terry, what if I had asked you back then? You wouldn't want to be my side thing, right? The love and respect you had for me wouldn't be the same." I wrapped my arms around him. He gently took my hand and placed the ring on my finger, saying, "Terry, I love you, and no one else. You're the one I want, and I'll always stick by you." Tears streamed down my face. I watched him with our girls on the Gabriel now, 5 years later. I've always believed that he is everything to me. Right now, the only thing that could make me happier would be if little Mail, who loved me, his sisters, and his dad, Michael, was here, sitting with Michael at 4. Mail was too young to leave Gina for our 6-month trip. However, the main reason was that Gina didn't want to be apart from him for too long. Indeed, Mail was Michael's child from their brief union with Gina. According to Gina, he was named after Big Mail, her father. Gina visited us in San Francisco a few months after we became engaged, and she had some exciting news. She was pregnant with Michael's child. She only wanted Michael to know that she was incredibly happy and that, should he want to be involved in the baby's life, she intended to move back to be near her family. Gina received a lot of assistance from Michael, who is a great guy. He ensured she could continue to work for Global without doing much flying, more like providing guidance on medical matters. He put her in touch with the best doctors in the area and found her an apartment nearby. Like Michael's, her office was in a large house perched on a hill. Gina had a strong affection for Michael, and even after their romantic relationship ended due to me, I could occasionally sense that she still held strong feelings for him, particularly since they were now expecting a child together. Gina and I grew close quickly, practically becoming sisters, and she assisted me in planning my wedding while I assisted her in preparing for the baby. Cassie, Gina, and Mail also got along well. Gina's hands were in our hands when Mail entered the world. We made sure Mail would have everything our own children would have, and Michael's name is listed as the father. Gina lived in the large house in a new apartment that Michael had furnished for her after Mail was born. She was even appointed deputy head of security by him. A few weeks after Mail was born, Michael and I tied the knot in that Nob Hill house. Michael's friend Jake Farber was the best man, and Mr. McGregor led me down the aisle. Sergeant Major Sloan and Janice Elders, Michael's helicopter pilot, were among the guests. She appeared to be deeply in love and was sporting a large diamond ring. It was good to see a woman my age who was likewise in love with a man who was roughly 12 years older. Cassie and I moved to Nob Hill the following day. When I was expecting Sarah, Gina was a huge help. When we both returned to work, we had a nanny who lived with us. To us, Mail and Gina were like family. There were moments when I worried about what people would say if they saw us out and about, 2 younger women pushing a stroller with our child inside while we had our arms linked with Michael's. Michael enjoyed the looks that other guys would give him. Gina was going to wed a fantastic guy who worked for Horizon Air as a PLS pilot. They would relocate to Portland and scheduled their October wedding. Although we would really miss them, we knew we would see them frequently because she would be getting a free flight. We're all 4 flying in from Dallas to Biz City tomorrow to catch up with them. Mail and Gina were scheduled to stay with us for 2 weeks. Michael and I were going on a quick trip, and Cassie and Sarah didn't want to stay behind. Cassie, with her soon-to-be teenage face, complained, "Mom, Dad, we got to come too. Mail's like our brother, so why can't we not go?" Okay, we're all set. The girls hurried to get ready for bed, carrying with them their cheerful banter about meeting Gina and Mail and the following day. "Michael, you're such a softy," I grinned and gave him a hug. "You spoil the girls too much, like I spoil you." His big smile stretched to embrace me. "That's different, you're my huss, you got to spoil me," he said. He leaned into Terry and hummed, "Terry, do you know how much I love you?" I was thrilled to see him with the girls and thought, feels like I'm about to find out. When he looked up, we met eyes. He was beaming with happiness. To stay warm in the chilly night air, I wore a boating outfit consisting of a white tiny swimsuit covered by one of his old white shirts. My chest was partially exposed by the uncovered shirt. I offered him a seductive smile and said in a low voice, "Shower." He smiled back and agreed. I was thinking about how my kind husband didn't seem like the stories I'd read about him attacking a pirate island as I was taking a shower. Then I thought of Brian Taylor. Michael returned to San Francisco, and the Harbor Patrol discovered Brian's body in the bay about 6 months later. He had a bullet wound to his forehead and was severely injured. I was curious as to what became of him. My coworker Greg Tiller received a note from the drug squad and a condensed copy of the postmortem report from a police acquaintance at my request. According to the report, Brian was high on cocaine and heroin. It appears that Brian became involved in small-scale cocaine trafficking and met prominent drug dealers in Oakland. The drug cops believed they would eventually catch him and force him to testify against the Oakland drug lords. Though no one was sure why, they suspected a member of the drug group killed him. They never found his Porsche, according to the report as well. I used to wonder if Michael was connected to Brian. Could Brian's killer have been my kind partner and our daughter's father? A few days before they found Brian, there was this one day that raised doubts in my mind despite my doubts. Michael and I would frequently have breakfast at our Nob Hill house, which I drove to. We didn't spend many nights together because we weren't quite over his divorce. Subsequently, I arrived early for our breakfast and was examining some work papers in my van when Michael, appearing disoriented, passed by. He appeared to have not slept, as evidenced by his perspiration. Without noticing me, he headed straight for the house. He was about to open the door when I caught up to him. "Michael, are you okay?" he asked, appearing a little taken aback. "Terry, you scared me." "No, I'm fine. Just had a bad night. Thought I'd go for a run." "You don't look good. Are you sick or hurt? Your hands are bloody, and you've got a mark on your face." He tried to smile, but his eyes were sad. No, Terry. I'm okay. Just feel silly. Fell on the street. He went to shower and we missed our customary morning kiss. Guess I'm getting old. Can't stand up straight anymore. Let's go in. I'll shower and feel better. Tell Mrs. Wheeler I'll be down in 15 minutes for breakfast. He didn't show up for dinner, claiming he was too tired, and appeared anxious the entire day. When they discovered Brian's body, my thoughts began to swirl. I kept thinking there was a connection between what had happened that morning and Brian's passing. Upon reviewing the police report and realizing that Brian was a drug dealer, my concerns regarding Michael nearly vanished. Even though Michael probably saw it in the news as well, I never asked him about it. He never mentioned it, but it crossed my mind occasionally. I tried to focus on more pleasant thoughts. Without Brian Taylor, the world was a better place. He would never again steal money, wreck houses, or sell drugs. 5 years had passed, and Brian had a bad reputation. He wasn't liked by many. After blow-drying my hair and donning a silk robe, I headed over to bid the girls good night. Helen, at the Diva International Salon in San Francisco, several months later. Thanks, Simone. It's just right. You're amazing, Helen replied. Working on someone as beautiful as you makes it easy, Simone shot back, hoping for a larger gratuity. As Helen left a large tip for her stylist, they both laughed. Helen examined her reflection in the large mirror. She had just treated herself to a complete makeover at her favorite place. She was going to go home and change into one of her fancy dresses that flaunted her legs and a small portion of her chest, so she thought, yes, just what I want for tonight. Just the right fancy look. She looked at herself in her burgundy silk top and light gray lawyer suit. The shoes had higher heels, and the skirt was shorter than what she usually wore. She was pleased with her long legs and thought that at 50 a woman needs to flaunt her legs a little more if she still can. A younger conductor who was visiting the city with the San Francisco Symphony was her date. She enjoyed the energy of younger men in bed and felt good about herself when dating them. She intended to show Mr. Conductor how an older woman can make an impression on him in bed when she brought him back to her upscale condo. The thought made her smile and give her a rush. With the attractive conductor tonight, she would undoubtedly be featured in the Chronicle's photo. She hoped Michael would get envious when he saw her photo. That was a dumb move. As she considered what her therapist, Dr. Chambers, had told her, her mood soured. She no longer gave those difficult times much thought. Helen, can't you understand? Michael's married and has a kid. Doing things with Michael in mind isn't helping you move on. Don't you see? Michael has moved on with his life. The day Michael told her it was over at Johnson and Kemp, the day Terry showed her the pictures and emails. She would get hit by the memories hard on some days, but other days she was fine. She had no idea when thoughts of Michael would surface, but when they did, it still hurt. She occupied herself. After seeing success with her own legal practice, she began lending a hand at Paws. She was delighted to have adopted a dog, despite the fact that it was unexpected. Helen had a faithful friend in a golden lab mix named Helen, who enjoyed going for runs beside the water. She frequently went to Camp Pendleton, which is close to San Diego, to see Megan, Matt, and little Matt Jr. Matt continue to serve in the Marines, frequently traveling to Afghanistan and Iraq. Megan was a Carlsbad teacher who was also carrying their second child. Now that Liz was in the Peace Corps and had relocated to Washington, D.C., Helen knew that Michael and Terry saw her frequently since Michael was a frequent visitor to the city. Helen hoped Liz would find her place. Helen grinned as she gave the large salon mirror another glance. She hoped to be the life of the party tonight and tomorrow, maybe inviting the young conductor over. She also wanted her picture in the newspaper. She made a stop at the salon entrance to retrieve her sunglasses from her purse. Helen said, "Oh, Mrs. Connors, just a moment," as she turned to answer the call. Her eyes widened at the sight of Terry, the new Mrs. Connors, looking stunning in a tan skirt and white sweater that accentuated her tan legs. Terry's legs looked even more stunning with her strap-adorned high heels. She appeared younger than her actual age due to her short, bleached blonde hair. When Helen noticed that Terry hadn't noticed her in the salon, the girl at the front said to Terry, "Mrs. Connors, Greg wants to talk with you for a bit." "And congrats." Helen watched Terry's boss leave the salon and give him a hug. He stood back and gave her a close inspection. "Terry, you're shining." "Congrats. Patty just told me." "Are you and Michael happy? Do you know if it's a boy or girl?" "No, Greg, but it's exciting." "Do you want another girl?" "Michael says it's all the same, but I think handling 3 girls might be too much," she chuckled. He smiled and said, "That boat ride made you even more beautiful." Helen felt a stab of melancholy. As Greg and Terry said their goodbyes, grief consumed her thoughts. She forced herself to walk away, shaking her hands as she put on her shades. She was concealed by a large column by the salon. Helen glanced at the location of her meeting with Michael more than 5 years prior. She leaned against the wall in an attempt to decompress after being struck hard by sadness. A large black Audi parked in front of the salon at that exact moment. It had a paper tag on it because it was so new. She saw herself in its reflection, as well as the V10 sign on its side. A little blonde girl, maybe 4 years old, ran from the car to hug Terry when she left the salon. Helen knew she was the child of Terry, Michael, and Sarah. They walked back to the car, Terry lifting her into her arms. "Mommy, Daddy said Cassie and me are the most beautiful girls in the world," Sarah replied. She laughed. "Did he now? And what about me?" The girl gave her mother a look. "Daddy says you're the most beautiful woman in the world." Michael just happened to walk over from the car to greet Terry. Wearing a light jacket, dark glasses, and a shirt without a tie, he looked put together and comfortable as he held their daughter. Unlike Helen, Terry kissed him deeply, not fleetingly, as she had done when they were together. Helen had a strange feeling. Their child stated, "Daddy says tonight we can eat all the cake and ice cream we want at his party." Terry cast a thoughtful glance. Sarah turned to her father for support, and he nodded and grinned. "Yes, Princess. I make the rules, not Mommy," they grinned together. "It's my birthday." Helen realized, oh no, it's Michael's birthday today. Helen observed Michael helping Terry into the car after ensuring Sarah was secure in her car seat. Shutting the door, he circled the vehicle and gave Helen a direct glance. He removed his spectacles, grinned slightly to indicate that he had seen her, put them back on, got into the car, and drove away without turning around. Helen was lightheaded and relieved to have the wall to lean on. She needed some time to feel normal again. "Happy birthday, Michael," she turned to walk down the street, and a tear ran down her cheek, ruining her face paint. "Hi there. Please feel free to forward these contents to your friends and family if you find them useful. In addition, as is customary, if you like this video, please click the like button to support our podcast in reaching a larger audience on YouTube, as the platform favors videos with a high number of likes. You might also think about becoming a subscriber to the channel so you can be notified whenever I post something new. YouTube will let you know as appropriate. I appreciate your help, and I hope you have an amazing day.